I think you're on mute.
Workday starting to sound the same?
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmurz Day, June 30th, 2025. On the show today, news in listener questions, Echo and the Bunnymen, plus a new Disney patent. Then in our main segment, Jim gives us the history of the original Innoventions and how CommuniCore was changed at Epcot in the mid-1990s. Let's get started by bringing in the man begging you not to call the coleslaw yeehaw kimchi at the cookout this weekend, because you know what it does to your father. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
Kimchi. Oh, my God. Len,
yeehaw kimchi.
Well, I mean, see, now the thing is, this brings back memory of my time in the service, and a lot of my friends were soldiers who, when they were stationed over Korea, met lovely, smart local women and married them. And then they'd be stationed back in the States, where this young woman, of course, having been raised in Korea, would then continue her family's customs and traditions while they're living in America, and which involve prepping kimchi, Len, which first involves cutting cabbage in a specific way. You got to do it lengthwise. Then you got to salt it. You then rinse it and then drain, and then you mix this cut up cabbage with spice paste, and then it has to ferment. And this is the part of the kimchi making process, the fermentation, that always got a little interesting. Because if you're making real kimchi, like the stuff back in Korea, you first have to place that cut up cabbage, again, which you've mixed with spice paste, in a tightly sealed earthen jar. And
a clay pot of some kind.
Yeah, and now you have to bury it in the backyard in the late fall, and you don't dig it up till late winter or early spring of the following year. And Len, I don't know if you're a fan of Stephen King.
Why is Jim's new wife out there burying stuff in the yard in the middle of the night? Why is this?
There we go. And the interesting thing, I went into the service in '83, the very same year that Pet Sematary came out, and I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah.
Things that get buried in the backyard, it doesn't end well. So I'd go to friends' houses, hey, would you love some freshly made kimchi? And it's like, no, I'm good. And what's the deal with your cat over there? Why is it growling at me?
Why is your cat looking at me strange?
There we go.
That's fantastic.
Anyway.
All right, Jim, let's do a shout out to our subscribers. Thanks to everyone who subscribes to the show over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, including Melissa Doyle, Charles Fassner, LM2023, Leigh Shabazian, Paul Finley, and Dr. Matt Robinson. Jim, beware of this wretched group of used transport salespeople pushing vehicles of dubious origin onto unsuspecting guests in Batuu. Our investigation reveals that many of these ships being sold are actually surplus from an astral orbiter refurbishment in another galaxy. Even worse, these speeders all pull to the right when flying, which puts extra work on the pilot and the R2 unit. True story.
Pulls to the right. Oh, that's funny. Okay, good stuff.
All right. On to the news. The Disney Dish News is sponsored by DVCRentalStore.com. Jim, I was updating our hotel data for Boulder Ridge this week, including Disney's rack rates for these hotels. And on a whim, I checked DVCRentalStore.com to compare the rates. And I found this deal for a 3-night, 1-bedroom that sleeps 5, starting July 20th for $408 per night all in. And I checked Disney's website. That's $90 cheaper, $270 over the course of the stay, than Disney's best discount for that room. Ooh. That's all part of DVC Rental Store's limited time promotion with the best prices of the year. So check them out at dvcrentalstore.com/Disney Dish.
Cool.
All right, on to the news. In Walt Disney World, Jim, did you see that the Disney website was updated last week with new dining search capabilities?
No. Okay. What new features have been added?
So there are a couple of things that are going to make it really easier for you to find that dining reservation you want. One is a calendar view that allows you to select up to 10 days to check over the next 2 months for reservations. And the great thing about the calendar view is there's a little dot underneath each day. And if the dot is green, it means that there are still reservations available for that day.
Oh.
So you don't have to click anymore to click the day, then click the time you want to see if anything's available or not. This will tell you automatically which days don't have reservations.
Cool. Okay. That's a great help right there.
The other thing it does is, remember the old version of the website would let you search by breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now you can search by specific times of the day. So our own Christina Harrison did a short video explaining the new changes. I put a link to that video in the show notes for everyone.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. My sense is that this is driven, Jim, by a desire to get more people into the sit-down restaurants.
Yeah, we have talked about that, haven't we?
Yeah.
So ease of use potentially will turn into more reservations.
Yeah, that's what I think this is. It's an easier way for people to get reservations. Because I think once you have the reservation, mentally you've committed to it.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're more likely to go. So the step of getting the reservation is the first part of increasing occupancy in the restaurants. That's good. Okay. Let's see what else. The Disney Starlight Parade route is going to start on Main Street and end in Frontierland. Did you see this?
Okay. Is for both runnings?
It is, actually. And I think the Disney's reasoning for this is pretty sound. Disney says that it's going to make it easier for guests to exit the park after the parade because it will have already passed through Main Street, which is where the exit is. So you can, rather than watching the parade in Frontierland when it kicks off and then having to basically walk with the parade and try and get out in Main Street while the parade is still going on, the parade will start in Main Street, which means it'll be gone and they can open up Main Street to exiting guests while the parade is still running. So just by tweaking the orientation of the parade, they've made it easier for guests to leave the park at night. I think this is very smart.
I agree. Just one note, though. They're going to have to keep the parades turned off and dark as they roll them through from the parade barn out back behind Tiana's Bayou Adventure to Main Street. Because otherwise, I mean, when you're on the Jungle Cruise and passing by the African savannah scene where the lions are protecting the sleeping zebra,
Right.
the parade floats go by just behind the berm there. So it just, somebody hits a switch at the wrong time. It's like, what the hell are the lions up to? And why?
The line's going to some sort of rave after this?
There
What are
we
we
go.
doing? All right. And finally, the Astro Orbiter ride vehicles have been installed and are spinning around now, so we're in test mode for that.
Cool.
So it looks like we're going to get that reopened in the next couple of weeks, too.
All right, that'll help.
Over at Universal Orlando, Epic Universe has made some changes to the attractions open for early admission. So Donkey Kong Minecart Madness is no longer open. But Epic has added the Constellation Carousel, Monsters Unchained, the Frankenstein Experiment, and Curse of the Werewolf. So that's going to join Yoshi's Adventure, Stardust Racers, and Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge. And that's interesting because Dark Universe had not been officially open for early admission prior to this. So this is going to spread guests out more.
Oh yeah,
in the morning.
Yeah,
which is good. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
but again, that's kind of disappointing given the capacity issues with Minecart Madness. But
yeah.
So, any thoughts? Putting on your touring plans hat, how to modify one's trip to the park to get this in?
Yeah, I think you should still start in Super Nintendo World, especially with Mario Kart. But then from there, I would go to Celestial Park. I would get in a ride on Constellation Carousel, and I think you could fit in Stardust Racers and be in line for Monsters Unchained before the park officially opens. So you can get, 4 attractions in. The good thing is Constellation Carousel and Stardust Racers are relatively short duration for attractions, and they're not going to have super long lines in the morning. So you should be able to get to Monsters Unchained right before the park opens to everyone, and crowds grow from there. So yeah, that'll get you through 3 of the park's headliner attractions in the first hour it's open.
Okay.
Yeah. And speaking of Epic Universe park hours, have you seen that Epic Universe has been unofficially staying open about an hour longer than its advertised closing time?
No. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's unofficial, so it can change any time. But for now, it's nice to get that extra hour in the park.
Okay. And if you've got an hour to kill, you've done your time. What do you think? Do you have to be in Dark Universe for the amazing lighting package, or what do you do?
That's the thing. So you've got 3 choices. I really like Dark Universe at night. I think it's it's much better at night. But also Battle at the Ministry, so Ministry of Magic, that whole area, which is Paris, is lovely at night. Very, very pretty. Lots of neon. Really good lighting package there as well. And then, Stardust Racers at night is also fun. So you got a ton of options.
Okay.
All right, last little bit of news. If you're in the New York City area on Friday, July 11th, Chelsea Table and Stage is hosting a show called To All Who Come to This Happy Place, Welcome, featuring classic music from Disneyland's first 70 years. I am going. Tickets are under $40 per adult, and if you can't make it in person, there's a live stream available for cheap, but you've got to mix your own drinks. So I would say go to Chelsea. Anyway, I put a link to the show to the tickets in the show notes. It's relatively inexpensive. And Jim, I was talking with the organizers of the show. I'm like, do you know if Disney did a drag queen brunch on property, you would never be able to get in because of the demand? Like, you could charge $200 a person, and they'd be like, "Oh, take my money."
Yeah. But well worth noting here again, the live stream. Nancy and I have begun doing the 54 Below does same thing. They do performances there, but they also do live streams, and it's a great way to experience theater without getting off the couch.
Yeah, it's like theater, but with more comfortable seats.
There we go.
Fantastic. All right, Jim, let's do some listener questions. From Tom Luft, who says, why is Tron, arguably the number one ride in the Magic Kingdom, not open for early entry with the rest of Tomorrowland? All right, so there are a couple of things. It's definitely not reliability, because Tron is fairly reliable. So I have two guesses. My first one is that there's still enough demand for it as Lightning Lane Single Pass to make it worthwhile for Disney to run it after the park opens. But also, it probably helps balance out traffic once the park opens to day guests, because you've got Tron open on one side of the park, Tiana's and eventually Big Thunder Mountain on another, plus Haunted Mansion. So traffic flow, Tom, is probably the other reason, I'm guessing. What do you think, Jim?
Well, another wild card to toss in here is, remember, later this year, we get the long-delayed third Tron movie, Tron Ares. And,
right.
And the belief is that this time for sure, Len, we figured out how to make a good Tron movie. And it's just the whole notion of this will artificially boost the interest in that attraction. And that, of course, will more people will go, well, all right, I will spring for the Lightning Lane Single Pass. And that said, it'll be interesting to revisit this in a year plus time to see if it still is not available for early entry, if they finally bite the bullet.
So now that there's going to be a third Tron movie, it qualifies for my Christmas time movie marathon watch, where I watch all of the movies in a specific film franchise. All right, good to know.
Okay, that's not going to be a very happy Christmas, Len. I'm just saying.
All right, fair. Good to know.
Okay.
All right, we have an email from Tom Marks, who says, I'm a big fan of the show. With Muppet Vision closed and Rock and Roller Coaster scheduled for refurb, what's the plan for Hollywood Studios if one or two rides like Rise of the Resistance and Runaway Railway are down at the same time? Does the place just grind to a halt? And so my response to Tom was along the lines of, if I may quote 80s post-punk legends Echo and the Bunnymen, I would say Disney's strategy is bring on the dancing horses and whatever other character greetings they can muster. There's probably a college program landscaper who's been told to collect amphibians for a Michigan J. Frog style musical number. And yes, Jim, I know that's a Warner Brothers reference, but these are tourists. What do they know?
There we go. Thank you. Love that you quoted Rizzo the Rat there. I don't know. We are in for an interesting couple of years until Monsters, Inc. Door Coaster opens, and haven't we also been hearing something about Animation Courtyard, or am I not supposed to be talking about that?
We are not supposed to be talking. Well, I mean, we know that. Okay, so the rumor is that they've arrived at a decision, but we don't know anything about it. So we'll see.
Okay.
I will say the concepts that we heard, none of them were particularly compelling, I thought. So hopefully they've got a cohesive thing here going on. We'll see.
We can only hope.
Yeah, and hopefully soon.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Last email is from Kevin Poplowski, whose friends call him Tom, I'm sure. Now that Epic Universe is open, let's say Battle at the Ministry's wait time is 120 minutes. How much of that wait time is spent inside the Ministry of Magic from going through the Metroflu and onwards versus standing outside in lines? I can't seem to get a straight answer, but I'm turning to the Master of Wait Times and all sorts of downtime procrastinating for the answers. All right, fair. So as it happens, I walked through the queue one time with someone who helped design the ride. So I think the post-flu part of the queue can easily hold a 2-hour wait. And I suspect it's probably closer to 3 hours, depending on how they configure the stanchion. So the queue is supposed to hold 4 or 4.5 hours of guests. If the line stretches to the Metro Flu, there's a significant chunk of additional queue space behind the Metro Flu. And if that gets filled, then the line either closes temporarily, which we've seen them do, or it extends out into Paris. And I've seen both happen. So, yeah. So I think probably 3 hours once you're inside the ministry itself. Yeah.
That said, though, haven't we, isn't anecdotally there evidence now that the later in the day you do this, the shorter the lines are over there? And you were just talking about the lovely lighting package in Paris. So it's 2 bites of the same apple, so to speak, right?
Yeah, it's super pretty. The lines get down to under 45 minutes, sometimes under 30 minutes, very late in the afternoon and the evening. So it's a great time to go then. Yeah, basically, I mean, the thing with any theme park is you get a bunch of popular attractions done very early. You see shows and live theater in the middle of the day, and then you catch the remaining popular attractions after everyone goes home. So, yeah.
Got it. Okay.
All right, Jim, on to patents. We haven't talked about patents in a while, but there was an interesting one that Disney had filed an application for. And the patent, which I've pasted in the show notes, is titled Concealment of Ride Vehicles in Close Proximity to Other Ride Vehicles. And the thing that's interesting about this is it solves the problem of being, like, for example, in the Haunted Mansion. And I think we all know the Haunted Mansion would be spookier if you're the only person in the Haunted Mansion. But there are ride vehicles all around you, right? So it's kind of, the illusion is a little bit compromised because of it. So Disney's patent here is essentially, I think, projection technology that makes the other ride vehicles disappear. So it looks like you're the only one that's on the ride. And I do note in the patent drawing, Jim, that looks like a doom buggy, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Though, just to bury the needle in the other direction, what's interesting, at least about the illustration of this new patent, is the suggestion that the way they make the vehicle in front of you disappear, again, as you mentioned, projection technology, but that if you go in the other direction, turning the vehicle in front of you into a performance space, something where...
Right, yeah, you could do a lot with that, yeah.
You could. I mean, think about it. We've always heard the ghost host, but we've never seen the ghost host. And wouldn't it be interesting?
I didn't think so. All right, so I was thinking of it just going away, but you're thinking it could be as additional character or story elements.
Yeah.
Oh, that's smart. Wow, how about that? It's almost as if, Jim, someone has told you about this, and I didn't know. Go figure. What? I have no idea what we're talking about here. All right.
There we go.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim gives us the history of CommuniCore and Innoventions. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
My day kicks off with a refreshing Celsius energy drink, then straight to the gym. Pre-K pickup, back home to meal prep. Time for my fire station shift. One more Celsius, gotta keep the lights on. When the 3-alarm hits, I'm ready. Celsius. Live, fit, go. Grab a cold, refreshing Celsius at your local retailer or locate now at Celsius.com.
Walmart Business is in the business of helping your business, regardless of whether you're building bridges, building spreadsheets, or building lesson plans. Ooh, that looks fun. Walmart Business can help save you time, money, and hassle so you can focus on what you're building instead of what your supply closet is missing. In short, we take care of business so you can do more with yours. We're the Walmart you love, now for your business. Learn more at business.walmart.com.
And we're back. All right, Jim. One of the great theme park disappointments I've endured is the demolition of CommuniCore and Innoventions in Epcot, which I loved. Right? And we did get CommuniCore Hall and Plaza, but not the same thing.
Well, no, not at all. And again, by the way, that opened in World Celebration at Epcot a year ago. And again, remember, Mr. Testa every so often stresses being positive. All right, and so I didn't want to be among those who piled on. I was hoping that Epcot management would eventually figure out what to do with this part of the park. But again, CommuniCore Hall, CommuniCore Plaza officially came online June 10th, 2024. And just this week, I saw a picture of the completely empty space inside. And Len, this was taken middle of the afternoon in Central Florida in June when people are typically desperate for places that have shade and air conditioning. Not to mention somewhere you could sit down and plug in your phone. And this is the thing. People come up to this while they're at Epcot, peer into this bland, abandoned space and go, nope, not going in there.
I mean, Jim, think about the architectural achievement that is. You've got a bunch of hot tourists standing in the sun in Florida. Yeah. And they look inside an air-conditioned space with seats and say, you know what? I'd rather be outside. Like, that's amazing.
Well, there's this great story about what Tom Hanks once said about Disney Studios back in the early 80s. By the way, this would have been 1983, just as Tom was beginning work with Daryl Hannah and John Candy on Splash. And Hanks had driven over to the Disney lot with Ron Howard. They're going to have their first meeting with Ron Miller, the head of Walt Disney Productions at the time. And so they're walking up Mickey Avenue past all these carefully groomed lawns. But you have to understand, Len, that at this time, Disney, out of the 8 studios in Hollywood that are making films at this time, they're 8th. They are dead last. But again, it's understandable given this is back in the day when the mouse was making cinematic classics like Gus, the field goal kicking mule. And I'm serious, folks.
I might watch that as a palate cleanser after the Tron trilogy.
Okay. The interesting thing is it literally stars everybody who was in a sitcom in the 1970s. It's got Edward Asner, Bob Crane, Don Knotts, Tim Conway, Tom Bosley, and Dick Van Patten. It's literally like Disney cast this movie by opening an issue of TV Guide to a random page and is like, well, that guy played a dad on a TV show. Let's hire
him. Exactly. Oh my God, that's great.
Okay, so anyway, it's back to 83. 2 relatively young guys at the time. Ron Howard is only 29. Tom Hanks is 27. And they're walking across the far too quiet Disney lot in Burbank because nothing's being produced there at the time. And Tom turns to Ron and reportedly says, this place feels like an underfunded community college.
If there was ever a description of CommuniCore Hall,
there we go.
That would be it right there.
You look at it and it's like, oh well.
It does. It's a student union. Yeah. It's a student union without a cafeteria. Oh my God, yes.
And you look at it and it's like, well, don't go in there. The janitor just polished the floors. The kids will be back in a couple of weeks.
It's still slippery. Yeah, they're setting up for registration in the fall. Don't go in there now. It's all.
Okay. Anyway, all right. I got to tell you, back in the day, if Michael Eisner would not have stood for this. He would have looked at the pictures of CommuniCore Hall and Plaza and said, we need to fix that. Now, on last week's show, we talked about Michael Eisner just a few months into when he arrived at Disney. On this week's show, we're going to revisit Michael some 9 years into his run at the Mouse House. So this is the fall of 1993. When, to be honest, Len, things aren't going great. It's about now that the Financial Press is reporting that due to its debt load, Euro Disneyland, which opened in April of 1992, is losing $2.5 million a day.
In 1992 money, that's like $8 quadrillion today. Wow, that's amazing.
Now, just to be clear here, not Disney's fault. When they started working on this project out in Marne-la-Vallée in August of 1988, This project was on time, it was on budget, but then when the Berlin Wall falls in November of 89, and then when Germany reunifies the following year in October of 1990, Euro Disney suddenly finds itself in direct competition with that country when it comes to, well, construction workers, building supplies. I mean, in the same window of time, Len, the price of steel just skyrockets because there's so much demand.
Oh, yeah, because they're rebuilding basically the eastern part of Germany.
There we go. So Euro...
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Euro Disneyland originally only supposed to cost $3 billion, winds up costing $4.4 billion. And with all that additional debt, that's how the park winds up losing $2.5 million, in spite of the fact that it's full. They can't, the debt load is that crushing. So Disney needs some relief from the consortium of banks, and they're initially not warming to that idea. So Disney says, okay, tell you what, we can't come to a new financial agreement. We're going to close the resort in March of 1994 and walk away.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Playing hardball. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's it exactly. And so with that gun suddenly being held to the head, the banks are like, okay, we're coming back to the negotiating table, and they get a new deal in place. And that's why the Disneyland Paris resort, as we know it today, is still in business. Now, I bring up Euro Disney because, again, back in 93, the purse strings at the Disney company, because of what's going on in France, suddenly really start to tighten up, Len. And a lot of big ticket projects like the Port Disney thing that was going to be built in Long Beach next to the Queen Mary, likewise the West Coast version of Epcot Center, they all get their plug pulled. And meanwhile, down in Florida, the now more than 10-year-old Epcot Center is really starting to show its age, especially in Future World.
Right.
And worse than this, that you now have companies like GE, the sponsor of Epcot's Horizon Pavilion, reaching out to Mouse House managers and saying, yeah, that 10-year sponsorship agreement, it's up this year. We're not renewing.
Right, because they're all 1982 agreements that ended in 92 or 93. 10 years, give or take.
There we go.
Oh, yeah. So they probably did it all at once because of the nature of the being tied to the opening date. Oh, that stinks. Okay.
Oh, it does. It does. So with Epcot Center, Disney is now dealing with a triage situation. They have to stop the bleeding in this theme park. They've got sagging attendance levels at a time when Imagineering has no money to work with. So what do you do in a situation like that? First, you rebrand. So this is why Epcot Center suddenly became Epcot 94.
I had suppressed that memory, Jim. Thank you for that.
There we go. Well, and again, same reason that Euro Disney became Disneyland Paris. A new name means a new beginning. And then you look for someone else's money to spend. And in a moment, we're going to talk about how that was the path for innovation. More to the point, how the path for innovations actually runs through Las Vegas. But first, this.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks, or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Visit USAA.com/bundle.
Bundle savings are off total premium, not available in all states or in all situations. To qualify, auto policy must be active prior to property policy issue, subject to change. Restrictions apply. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
Not all EVs are created equal. The Ioniq 9 sets a new standard. Hyundai's first all-electric EV with 3 rows. Space in an EV, finally. Plus, with over 300 miles of range, ultra-fast charging capability, and tech infused with safety features, this isn't just space. It's freedom reimagined. More room, more possibilities. Learn more about the Ioniq 9 at HyundaiUSA.com. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit TemptationsTreats.com to learn more.
And we're back. Okay, quick recap before we get going here. It's late summer, early fall, 1993. Euro Disney is losing $2.5 million a day. General Electric has just pulled out as a sponsor of Future World's Horizon Pavilion, and attendance level at Epcot Center is cratering.
Jim, let me just pause you here for 1 second, and I just want to acknowledge how much you personally are doing for the therapy industry in this one show, because now you've triggered me with Epcot 94 and the closing of Horizons. Let me just say, the thing that you're doing for the therapy industry is mostly on the supply side with this podcast. Not on the demand side. You're generating the supply of people that need therapy with this show.
What can I tell it? I count on those free gift baskets of Prozac. All right, anyway. All right. So what does a CEO do in a dire situation like this? They go to Vegas, baby. To be specific, every January, right after New Year's, you can't get anything done at Disney, especially to Imagineering, because everyone is away from the desks then, not because they're having an extended Christmas holiday, but because they're already in Las Vegas for the Consumer Electronics Show.
Oh, this was huge for decades.
It was. And, and the interesting thing is, started back in 1967, was initially in June, but who goes to Vegas in June? Yeah. So they moved it to January, where it was only not the hot part of the surface of the sun, just the corona.
Yeah, you're farther out. It's much cooler, yeah.
There we go. All right. And anyway, the Imagineers always made a point of going to CES because this is where you get to see a lot of cool cutting-edge tech all in the same place.
Oh, yeah.
Something like, a teeny tiny little projector that you can put on the back of a Haunted Mansion Omnimover. Go figure. And this is stuff that you can then incorporate into future ride shows and attractions for the parks. But anyway, Michael hears the Imagineers talking about how cool CES is, and so he starts making, it's like, all right, I'll do a day. I'll go out to Vegas for a day and walk the show floor, and he does this for a year or two, and Michael says, we need something like this down at Walt Disney World, either in Tomorrowland at the Magic Kingdom, or someplace inside of Future World, a place where people can then see the sort of tech that they'll have in their homes 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
And I'm sure Eisner is thinking, it's not only a place where people can see that sort of tech, it's a place where companies can pay Disney so people can see that sort of tech, right?
There we go.
All right. Okay.
Now, speaking of 10 years from now, to Michael Eisner's way of thinking, this is the real problem with Future World. When Disney originally began putting together the Epcot Center project and chasing down major corporations to be part of Future World, one of the terms they made of the contract was to the effect of, look, this is a 10-year deal, and you're under no obligation once you put your money in to update until this renews. Yeah. If you feel compelled, if you're a GM, you can bring in new cars or whatever you want to do. And if you want to wait 10 years, that's fine. And this, to Eisner's way of thinking, is this was the problem with Future World, that when he walked around that park, it was like, this is what the future looked like in 1982. It is now 10 years out of date. And the other issue here is the original business plan for Epcot's Future World was that they needed whales. Mm-hmm. They needed corporations with very deep pockets who could both fund the initial construction of the pavilion and then underwrite the day-to-day operations, what it was going to cost to run that. And look, there were a lot of companies who were interested in coming into Epcot Center, but at the same time, when you said, well, and you'll have to pay tens of millions of dollars for a full-size pavilion, it's like, I can't do that.
Yeah, that's a whole different chain of authorizations, right?
Totally. But on the other hand, to go to those same corporations now for Epcot 94 and say, hey, what if you were able to come in for $1 million or $2 million? There were a number of companies that would be interested in that proposition. So with this new battle plan in mind, CommuniCore East and West begin shutting down in the fall of 93 in phases. By January of 1994, the entire center of Future World is now behind construction fences as these two giant buildings are gutted. With the displays that have been part of Epcot Center since that theme park first opened in October 82, now being trashed and tossed into a nearby dumpster. Meanwhile, representatives from Disney are reaching out to companies who had booths at the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas and are like, hey, we're about to do something similar in Florida, only our version of CES is going to last a week. We'll be running ours year-round, and it'll be inside of a theme park that over 14 million people visited just last year, 1992.
14 million people with disposable income.
There we go.
So that's got to attract some companies, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. Sega, AT&T, Motorola, IBM, Apple, all decided they would now be part of what Disney's marketing team had decided would be called Innoventions.
Brilliant.
Yeah, Disney mashup word, invention and innovation. It's no bibbity-bobbity-boo, Len, but it'll do. The next thing you know, 149 tractor-trailer trucks full of high-tech are on their way to Orlando, where they're then set up inside of this new 100,000-square-foot display at Epcot Center. Now, Innoventions soft opens in the summer of 1994, mid-June. Won't officially open to the public till the fall of that same year, again, 94. And to keep what happened with the original Future World Pavilions, again, tech getting out of date, Eisner insisted that the companies coming into what used to be CommuniCore now had signed far shorter term contracts, just 2 years rather than 10 years. So with the idea here that because of those terms, there'd be far more churn in Innoventions. You'd be far more likely under those terms to walk through and see brand new tech. Because what Eisner wanted was you to be out in the real world a few years down the line to say, oh, yeah, I saw that at Epcot a few years back. That's really cool, don't you think?
I love it because it's a built-in refresh cycle. I love it.
It is. Now, not going to lie, Len, Innoventions, when it first opened, was kind of a mess.
It lacked a cohesive roadmap. I'll give you that. Like a cohesive layout. Let's go with that.
Well,
okay.
No, it's so interesting you say that because again, with these 2-year refreshes, for example, when Innoventions East was redone in 1999, out ahead of the Millennium Celebration, they literally that side of the exhibit was the theme was Innoventions, the road to tomorrow, and the entire thing was filled with highway signs and roads with yellow stripes and that sort of thing.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah, to try and guide you through it.
Yeah,
I remember this.
Because that's the thing. Previously, it was all of these booths and exhibits competing for your attention, and it was very much against the Disney persistence of vision, the weenie-driven culture of the Disney theme parks. But as Epcot 94 then changed into Epcot 95, and luckily for Len and his therapist, they stopped doing that in 96. Thank you. But they began, that's the thing, they would wade back into Innoventions, bringing new tech, new exhibits. And by the way, Len, the success of Innoventions actually created the thing that you and I initially bonded over, the Millennium Village over in World Showplace. The Israel
Pavilion at the Millennium I thought of that when we got the announcement about Spaceballs 2.
Yeah.
And I thought about that. That's how we met. That is literally our origin story.
There we go.
God,
there we go.
Great.
What Len is referring to is, by the way, again, inside of World Showplace, and again, this gives you some idea of what the world was like then. The Israel Pavilion, first of all, was positioned between what? The UK and Canada.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah. Geography is not our strength here. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, the attraction they had, their journey to Jerusalem, was an 8-minute long simulator. Though, what did they called it? The time elevator?
Time elevator.
There
yes.
We go. Okay. So, and you traveled through 3,000 years of history in the region. And what Len is referring to is at some point when you're watching this movie, you're just sitting there waiting for Mel Brooks to show up as Moses.
Well, because there was a character there that looked like Moses.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm 10 seconds into this, and I'm thinking, this is going to be Mel Brooks doing his, was it 2,000 or 3,000-year-old man bit, and it's going to be the greatest thing in theme park history if they play it right. Yeah. And it was 10 minutes of serious monologue, and I'm like... but then when you and I were talking about it, we both said at the same time, didn't you think that was going to be Mel Brooks?
I am here with these 10
commandments. I mean, I hope Mel Brooks has a much longer life ahead of him, even now, even though he's turning like 99, or if he could go back and redo that as a parody.
Oh, no, I'd love that.
My life would be complete.
Just a little Mel Brooks news before we continue on here. Did you see that they're working now on a very young Frankenstein TV series with Mel's involved?
No, fantastic.
So, all right. Anyway, back to Innoventions. Did you have a favorite part of Innoventions, Len?
Oh, yeah. So a couple of highlights. Some of All Thrills was wonderful because... that was the roller coaster simulator that you got to program before you went on it. And then they put you on the end of a giant Kuka robot arm that had you simulate the roller coaster. I thought that was genius.
Oh, absolutely.
I liked, I still remember the Great Piggy Bank Adventure, which I think was sponsored by T. Rowe Price.
There we go.
Because remember, it was about financial planning and retirement planning, and they had you carry around a piggy bank, which was kind of great. The House of Innoventions was great, and then we have to give a shout out here to Habit Heroes, because our friend Chris Eliopoulos did some of the lettering for the ride posters. Jim, this was the exhibit that was so controversial that it closed during previews. Yeah, good times. Anyway, what about you?
Well, for me, it was always the Imagineering Lab, which was located in Innoventions East. And what was interesting about this was where you could experience an early version of Disney Vision, which was this virtual reality thing. Now, mind you, you had to put this thing on your head that was roughly the size of a bedpan, and same weight, by the way. But you were then allowed to fly through Agrabah on the Aladdin's Magic Carpet VR experience. And now, mind you, Imagineering Lab only up and running till 95, but 3 years later, Disney Quest opened at Walt Disney World, June of 1998, with a Aladdin's Magic Carpet ride. And so again, Michael Eisner did in fact get what he wanted, that Innoventions gave you a peek at something that was just down the road, that tech that would be soon part of your life.
Yeah. That was fantastic.
Yeah, and it just, I guess for me, the other thing I remember so clearly, there was this Medicine's New Vision display that RSNA had over in Innoventions East. And
I don't remember this one.
Well, it was all about medical imaging technology, which I have to tell you, given that we've been dealing with Nancy's hip replacement surgery for the past couple of months. This is where I saw literally the stuff that the surgeon, Dr. Tom, handed to me. In fact, well, this is her hip, and this is why we're going to take it out. And by the way, not to put too fine a point on it, Dr. Tom in this procedure was assisted by a robot that came in from the other side. But anyway,
there you go.
Just so weird to be talking about Innoventions. And I saw this back in 99, and 25 years later, it's what makes it possible for Nancy to get around the house now. So anyway, to bring us back to where we started today's feature, again, Michael Eisner is a guy who, when he saw a problem in the parks, then figured out a way to solve them, ideally by spending somebody else's money to do that.
Sure.
I just wish there was somebody at the Disney company today who would then look at CommuniCore Hall and CommuniCore Plaza and think, do we need to fix this? Somebody call Sega and see if they'll give us 140 games to throw in there. By the way, before we close up shop here, was over at Retro WDW last night looking at some B-roll of Innoventions. In fact, they've got 35 minutes of the Road to Tomorrow version of Innoventions, and you'll love this,
beautiful.
There is at one point an image of 3 people in the Sega game section, and they're all playing Sega's virtual bass fishing game, and it's just sort of like it's like
that's
literally
fantastic.
300 feet outside of this building, you can rent a pontoon boat and fish for real bass out on World Showcase Lagoon. But no, let's stay inside in the air conditioning and play virtual bass fishing. But anyway, that's my look back at Innoventions.
I forgot how many good, high-quality, small exhibits they had in Innoventions, but some of them were really, really fantastic, and a lot of it really delivered on what Eisner wanted. So, I mean, overall, it's a success, I think.
Oh, no, totally. And let's not forget about next-gen animatronics like Electronic or for that matter, Starnac. There were some amazing bits of Disney stuff in that space, and now we have attractive outdoor planters.
It's I mean, I hope they figure out what to do with that, and I hope that they find some way of bringing back those constantly updating exhibits. It really is kind of part of Epcot's overall feel.
Oh, no, totally. It's part of that park's DNA, and it would just be lovely to see them to return to that.
Absolutely fantastic. All right, folks, that's going to do it for the show today. You can help support our show by subscribing over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, where we're posting exclusive shows every week. Our latest show with Imagineer Jim Scholl is a visual look at how the Muppets have been used in Disney's parks. On next week's show, Jim tells us how the Jack Sparrow and Barbossa AA figures were added to Pirates of the Caribbean attractions on both coasts on the same day that Dead Man's Chest arrived in theaters. And you can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len at terrainplans.com. We're produced spectacularly by Eric Hersey and David Gray, who'll be offering pre-race advice on gear ratios, crossweight, and tire stickiness before the four-wheel drive Stampede Showdown on Saturday, July 11th, 2025 at the Ponderosa Speedway in beautiful downtown Junction City, Kentucky. While Eric and David are doing that, please go on to iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.